Welcome back to Mindset Rebooted. I'm Romi and
And I'm Sam Hay. And today we're going to be talking about ChatGPT's integration into Khan Academy. We're going to be talking about MLB's opening day today at the time of this recording. And we're also going to be talking about how the Sacramento Kings finally broke their playoff drought.
So, bro, get me up to speed with this whole ChatGPT and Khan Academy, because I didn't even know about this whole integration thing until you mentioned it this morning.
Yeah, it was really dope because I was just, I don't even know how I even came across it, but Khan Academy, a lot of people use the platform and, it's very popular. I know it's helped me in times past. And so I'm very, very grateful for that platform. It helps educate a lot of people, different ages and different learning levels. I saw the CEO, Sal Khan. He was talking about how ChatGPT's or OpenAI's technology, ChatGPT, has been integrated into their learning platform called Khanmigo, which is like a subsect of Khan Labs under Khan Academy. And I thought that was pretty cool. He even mentioned how they had that cooking up before ChatGPT was actually open to the world. He just, couldn't talk about it because he had signed a non-disclosure agreement. And so that's pretty exciting. And I started to hear him talk about, what this really meant for people, for the future of EdTech. And, he addressed how a lot of schools have had heartburn over, ChatGPT. I mean, we all know it's disrupted a lot of sectors. People have worried like, hey, will this replace my job? How will this, hurt students in terms of like academic integrity? Will they still be critical thinkers? Will they be plagiarizing? And what I learned about their platform is that the Khanmigo actually uses AI as a tutoring tool. It helps tutor students and it helps address specific deficiencies and helps them learn at the level that they're at the level that they're at in a way that sometimes human interaction just doesn't do. Imagine a teacher having a class of 30 or even 100 or whatever, depending on the level that she's teaching, and she's not able to give the individual attention to a student in the way that a one-on-one tutor would be able to do. That's what this technology is able to do. It's able to learn the strengths and the weaknesses of the individual. The person's able to have a back and forth discussion with the AI in a private, comfortable setting, a safe space. And as far as addressing cheating, of course, a student might be tempted to just be like, hey, what's the answers to this? What's this math problem? Help me solve it. I need to get my homework done like yesterday. And what the AI is going to end up doing is just, well, what do you think? And then it's going to continue to engage. If the person is like, oh, I don't know, it's going to be like, oh, well, okay. Well, what about this idea? What do you think of this? And then it's going to pretty much have a back and forth that allows for the student to actually use their mind. So even if they need help with coming to the conclusion, it'll help them, but now it's going to learn how to teach the student better of how to come to these conclusions, which is actually great because, you as a listener, you might be thinking, yeah, like I had it hard with math or something like that coming up because really the way the teacher taught me was poor. And then, I had a different teacher who adapted to my learning style and I was able to learn in a great way and I passed the class with flying colors. That might be your story. I know a lot of people who are like that. And if that is your situation, well, that's the power of AI. And, that's what we're learning about the Khanmigo platform.
So it looks like Sal Khan, the founder of Khan Academy, he's kind of like at the front of all this new wave in education and teaching other people like that. What are your thoughts in terms of people who are kind of not necessarily looking at ChatGPT just for education, but looking at ChatGPT as a way to shortcut work? What are your thoughts on that? What are some pros and some cons on that?
As a way to shortcut work, I think that you've already gone into it with the with the wrong mentality, right? Because I get it. With new innovation, we want to be more efficient. And that would be the right question. It's like, how do I become more efficient using this tool rather than shortcut work? Because when I think of shortcut work, that mentality now says, oh, I'm not going to produce quality. I'm just trying to get this off my plate, get someone to do things for me, and I just move on. And so the pros are that it can be more efficient, right? Like, if you're understaffed, or if you just have a whole bunch of tasks to handle, you can use it as a virtual assistant, and pretty much it can help you knock out tasks more efficiently so that you can continue to produce for your company and you make the money and hit all your goals while you focus on the things that really, really require your individual brain power. That's what it should be used for. That's a pro of it. The con is that when someone uses it just to shortcut work, the quality may diminish. And so now, as opposed to being more productive, you might have to go back and do more rework. You might see flaws in different things where now customers and clients are now dissatisfied. And, those are different things where it becomes way more costly for you in terms of time, heartache, reviews, all of those different things. Your reputation is on the line. And so really what is really key in this process is you should be using it as a tool that assists you, but you should also manage the results. Like, you should oversee the results. Don't just trust that what it puts out is just gold.
Well, I like the pros and the con for it, because I've had personal experience of trying to use shortcuts to increase my efficiency. For example, on Facebook, there's that system where you could create a automatic messenger response for your Facebook business page. And I used it as a way to, like, man, everyone keeps asking me when are the next Dance on the Edge events. I'm tired of manually handwriting each response. Let me just have the system automatically send out these information. So that increased my productivity, so I could actually focus on stuff that I don't need to use, that I need to use more brain power on, right? But the con of that you mentioned is the quality. When I did that, and I forgot to update dates and hours on those automated responses. So when people are asking for information, the AI is sending it out and it's the wrong information, and now the quality degrades. And that was my fault, because I need to make sure that the way I'm using this system is actually helpful to the customer as well as for me. And so I like that idea of the pros and cons of it. I think the other aspect of it is that we've already kind of been using AI. We just been using it in a different way. We may have heard of it as automation. Like a lot of things that we do, if this then that, whenever we send out email templates, if you leave the office for the weekend, you usually have your out of office email response. Well, that's essentially AI doing work for you. It's just it's in an automated way that you haven't really thought of it as AI.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that the reason why like ChatGPT has been even more of a disruptor though is just because, like you said, with automation, it's like a if this then that. But with ChatGPT, it's engaging in a conversation based on your inputs and based on the data it's already collected. And it's not just as simple as a if this then that, because you might have a very specific question. And this is where I definitely tell people to enter, very intelligent questions, because I feel like the type of response you get, it's really going to be based on how smart of a question you ask. Like if you ask a general question, it might give you a general answer that actually isn't satisfying what you wanted. But when you are able to be more specific, more descriptive, more detailed, I think that's when it can narrow its its response essentially and give you good information. Because sometimes it's not like what it's telling you is false. It's just that the communication is poor. What it's understanding is different than what you intended. Whereas in the other stuff, the automation, it's like a if this then that. Like if you don't put in a specific thing, it's not even like gonna be able to respond properly. It might even say like error, because I don't know if you've ever like tried to do like an Excel formula.
Those.
You know what I'm saying?
The errors all the time.
Yeah, it's just gonna be like an error. So it's like it's not even able to engage in a meaningful conversation. It can't even point you in the right direction. It's just gonna be like, okay, error. But with ChatGPT, it's like it may ask you a more clarifying question in response, which is kind of cool, because now I believe that can help strengthen your critical thinking skills. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think like you mentioned, you have to ask smart questions, which means that we have to use critical thinking first
Yes.
before we input a prompt and set up these parameters. Really, what these questions are is setting up parameters for the machine to learn how to respond, right? So if we don't know how to set up parameters, we're going to get very blasé answers, which will not really improve our quality or efficiency. Maybe it improves our efficiency, but the quality is lame because it's just so blasé. Right,
Yeah.
that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think for people like our age who are already adults, we're out of school already, we're in the working field. When it comes to using ChatGPT, we need to use it with critical thinking first before we use it for our actual dissemination, distributions type of thing. Now, I think you mentioned this offline, that students who are now seeing ChatGPT being part of their education, Khan Academy is starting to use it. We see students using it now for their schoolwork now. There's a big benefit to them. Now, stick with me on this. So in our age, our benefit when it came to technology is that we grew up using keyboards. We grew up knowing how to left click, right click, move the mouse really quick for a user interface that's dynamic. Because back then in the 80s, it was all very static. You press Y or N or 1 or 0, because that's how it was back then.
Right.
We got used to the dynamic user interface, and now this is a different user interface. Can you kind of touch on your thoughts on that? Because you were very passionate about talking about education and how kids are growing up, or possibly going to grow up with this as a way to be better.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a more clarifying question. What part of it did you want me to touch on?
Yeah, I would say I would start off with young. So I got into the whole computer, typing class, learning how to Google search stuff class when I was in 8th, 9th grade or something like that. When was the time that you started using technology where your parents were like, "What the heck are you doing on that computer?"
Well, it's crazy. I don't think my parents ever said, "What are you doing on that computer?" And specifically because my dad, being an educator and actually going to get, I forgot what version of Windows it was, and all that other stuff, him being on it, as at a young age, I was exposed to it.
Okay.
So I don't think that it was anything other than a tool. That was automatically hey, yeah, make sure you look at this, and make sure you get familiar with this. And so that helped because I was like, okay, this is something that I should be using to help me in learning, and I think that that's what should be happening now, rather than people being scared of the technology as, oh, this is going to make kids dumb. The question should be, how do we integrate this into the learning process? How do we get them familiar with this automatically, from the time they come into the classroom, so that they can then, not even think about using it as a cheating tool, but just as a point of reference or something that can help assist them with brainstorming and things like that. It kind of reminds me of like the calculator. I'm pretty sure when the calculator first came out, there were people who were upset about the calculator and was like, oh no, this is cheating. You need to be having a paper and pen, and you need to be making sure that you do all of this stuff.
Wasn't our math teachers, their favorite line is you're never going to have a calculator with you?
Exactly. And I'm now I have every device I have has a calculator on it, and I'm never having to do long math. I remember we used to ask our math teachers why do we need to know this? What are we going to be doing in life that this will be important? And they'll try to come up with something. There was never really a satisfying answer. You knew it was BS. And so you realize you're okay, right now this learning is not really suited towards what I'm going to need. And I think that that's where we have a chance to really hit a home run with this AI. It's okay, let's make sure we use this tool to help students meet them where they are at individually. You know what I mean? Because every student learns differently. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. And that's where this AI can help teachers get to really, really know their students and help them actually develop lesson plans, because it helps teachers too. You know what I mean? It's not just students doing the work. It's the teachers who are creating different lesson plans who are going to be able to say, okay, for this student, I need to approach it this way. It might be able to ask ChatGPT or whatever AI is out there in the future, hey, Alyssa, based on the results that you showed me about Alyssa, how should I best go about facilitating her learning? And it might come up with some great examples of what it can, of what the teacher can do as an actual human being to help motivate the student and help encourage them, as they're using the tools and as they're having conversations with other students. And so in my mind, I think that that's how that conversation can go in the future with kids, especially like when you think about how learning used to be back in the day. For people who were learning back in the day, it was a privilege. You had tutors, specifically for individual students, people who could afford learning, obviously.
Well, we go way back into education. It was considered recreation. The only people that had the time and could afford to actually spend time learning were people who didn't have to work, were people who didn't have to go into battle. These were your higher class people who had all that leisure time to learn. And now it's changing to what we're doing now, right? Yep. So there's been a lot of seasons going on. Like we mentioned with our parents, they were used to this season of using static user interfaces on their computers. You and I, we grew up in the world of dynamic user interface where the mouse is moving. And now it seems to be that there's more of a AI interface or like a prompt interface type of thing, which by the way, you spoke on like the specific thing of, how can I cater my response to my student in a very specific way? We already kind of see that on ChatGPT because I learned just the other day, my buddy uses it and asks his ChatGPT to use 16 personalities as prompts in the tonality of how they write their thing.
Wow.
So that's already showing that example of curation towards different personality types.
Right.
Now I want to talk about new season. Today is the opening day for the MLB, Major League Baseball. Go Dodgers, Giants suck. And I wanted to bring that up because look at you're laughing. You love that, huh? So yes, Giants suck, Dodgers rule. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up, we've been talking about how like there's so many things that constantly change, but there's always something I realized when we were talking about education, that there's a common factor is that people have to want to learn skills and they have to continually try and learn in order for any of these seasons of interface or whatever to actually work.
Yeah.
So going into baseball, since today is opening day, it's to reset the whole playing field. Whatever we accomplished previously, whether we won the championship, the World Series or not, does not matter. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, it would help them if they looked at their life in seasons, because sometimes there are times where we're like 2-3 months in a row where like, man, I'm getting beat up at work, or I just got laid off because of the tech layoffs over this holiday season. It's hard to find a job, and it may not look like things will get better, but if we take a step back and be like, this is just a season of our life right now, the season will change, and it takes off that stress, and it feels almost as if this business as usual, I know what I got to do to move forward.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember I used to have to really break it up into seasons for me when I was overseas. I did the long distance thing for my wife for like 3 years when I was stationed overseas, and I would come home maybe like somewhere between every like 4 to 6 months as I could. And so, when we looked at the overall stint of how long I was going to be out there, that was a depressing type of thought. It was like, man, I'm about to be out here for this long. We're going to be away from each other for this long. But what we did was we would give ourselves targets to look forward to, like, oh yeah, the next time we're going to see each other for this amount of time is going to be during this time. And we would go about planning how we would maneuver during those seasons that we would have together and what we would do in the seasons apart to prepare ourselves for the following season and how we were going to be able to finish this entire 3-year stint of not, being with each other to just come out better on the other side. And a lot of it dealt with personal growth individually, right? A lot of it dealt with us learning different things, working on finances, getting certifications and different things like that. I mean, just really just growing, like whatever type of aspect you could think of, like in that aspect. And then coming together, seeing how we can continue to help integrate, into each other's lives with the newfound growth and development. And I think that in a very real sense, whether it's sports, whether it's a relationship, or whether it's just you as an individual, even in seasons where you're not necessarily doing quote unquote well, every time you enter into a new season, there should always be lessons learned from the previous. And you should be looking at the new season as this is a fresh start to do something better. It's a fresh chance to get towards the championship. Because one thing that I've realized is that sometimes even like whatever sports you choose, there are rebuilding seasons where you're probably not winning the championship that year, but that's not your goal. Your goal simply for that season was to develop the players that you have around you, build your culture, build the chemistry, so that you can actually be an undeniable force in the following season to allow you to have the best chance of winning and to do it for a long time. And that's kind of what I think about when I think of, oh, you know what? It's a new season. If I'm a team out there, what did we do this season, this off season, to prepare ourselves to be better than we were last?
I really like that idea of using what the previous seasons were towards next. And when you talked about the teams, besides, team development, personnel development, the one that I really relate to is financial development. If I use a sports analogy, a lot of teams use the 1 year or 2 years of rebuilding to create cap room to trade for a top free agent or to be able to re-sign their top player with a lot of big money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of personal finance, some of us could be, hey, the previous seasons we've lost so much money in terms of debt, high interest credit cards. Now this new season, we finally figured out and gained enough skill of how to actually start paying off those debt and start rebuilding our credit, so that this next 2 seasons, that's to maybe your credit score is at 500, which I think I had it at one point, built it up to 700 in the next 2 years, and then the third year will be like, all right, this is when we're going to go for this big purchase. This is when we're going to go into the offensive now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way that people have to look at it, is that or actually, now I'm going to backtrack. When I used to think that there were nothing in seasons, it's just one big long run, mm-hmm. It felt demoralizing because I felt like I was underwater.
Yeah.
But once I figured out this is just a season of growth, this is a season of just pain and suffering, which will make me stronger, which will give me skills to thrive when I'm actually in a better position, then it became like, all right, what else can I get? What other ROI can I get in this season of pain?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, the season of pain, because the growth does not happen unless you are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, there has to be a shifting. And here's the reason why pain or discomfort is necessary. Because if I am too comfortable, I will never move.
Yeah.
I will never move. Like, you have to get uncomfortable to say, oh, crap, I don't like how this feels. I need to be making steps towards getting into a better situation. And so a season of pain or discomfort is absolutely necessary. And when you think about it in the sports world, even when there are teams that are dynasties, they win for a while, or teams that just win a championship 1 year, you might see seasons, even long stretches, where they go without winning at all. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like the Sacramento Kings, for example. The last time they were in the playoffs was 2006. And now, 17 years later, they've made it back into the playoffs. And I'm sure in that long 17-year stretch, there was like so many frustrations going on. Because here's the other thing. Sometimes you don't even know how long that stretch of that not being
season of pain
is gonna be.
You don't know how long it's gonna be. Maybe one season, maybe a couple more seasons. But the most important part is that we gotta keep moving forward. Look for ways to learn. Look for ways to improve, so that eventually we will actually get into the playoffs. Like the Kings. Congrats on them, by the way. As of today's recording, the Kings did clinch their playoff berth yesterday.
Yeah.
So. 17 years, that's 16 seasons, because it's always in mid-season, right, or something like that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, whatever. Congrats to them. But the biggest important part is that lesson that you just mentioned is that some seasons just last longer than others.
Yeah.
But if the Kings didn't keep trying year after year, first off, they wouldn't have a fan base, because if your team doesn't try, your fans not going to care.
Yeah.
So if your fans don't care, your team's going to end up dissolving.
Mm-hmm.
right? Or moving. Like we see a lot of other sports teams move when they lose their fan base.
Yep.
And then the third part is if they didn't keep trying, they wouldn't have the team overall wouldn't have learned. All right, maybe this general manager will be better for us. Maybe this owner will be better for us, or this head coach will be better for us, or maybe this play strategy will be better for us. And now look at it. After 17 years of iterations, they're bearing fruit.
Yeah, because when I think about it, just last season, they were like 12th place in the West. I think they were like 30-52. And it was just a losing record. It was terrible. And literally just now, this season, I mean, you added a couple players that were key players, right? You kind of shook up the roster. You brought in a new coach. Like, it's like certain fundamental changes. Sometimes you could just be one step away from actually getting yourself over the hump. And I think that you saying like, yeah, you got to take action was something that was big, because I believe sometimes our seasons of pain are prolonged because of us, not because they had to be that long. I think sometimes we just do things that are to our own detriment, or we just don't take an action because we're like, oh, what's the use? And then it drags out that season of pain. But if we can get active in our development, if we can get active in our overcoming things and look for ways, which is one of the reasons why I'm kind of big on this whole like ChatGPT OpenAI, is because I'm big on how can we make this season of pain pass like as soon as possible. Like, how can we make things more efficient? How can we get better like each day right now? And it doesn't necessarily mean your efforts are gonna automatically work like right then and there, but it does mean that you are in a better position than you were yesterday, and you're in a better position than those who just sit and stew in their seasons of pain and do nothing, because that's how your season of pain goes from being temporary to being permanent.
My takeaway from this entire conversation is that there are going to be tools made available to us that will help increase our efficiency, help increase our productivity. It's on us to take responsibility and use critical thinking in how to apply those tools to benefit ourselves. And that, like, even though sometimes it may look like we're not moving forward, we are always moving forward as long as we're taking those actions every single day. Because eventually you swing one time, you get a strikeout. Maybe the third time you swing, you'll get that home run, or you'll get that hit, you'll get on base, and then you'll score. I had to bring it back to baseball.
Yeah.
Opening day.
I mean, you left out the Kings, but sure.
Opening day, baby. I'm from LA. I don't care about the Kings. There's only one Kings. It's the LA Hockey Kings.
And so I guess to add to his takeaway, sometimes you're only
sports talk always comes in.
To add to his takeaway, since he left out the takeaway from the Kings, sometimes you're just one or a couple moves away from getting over the hump and breaking that long stretch of pain that you're going through and entering into your season of victory.
Perfect. I love it.
All right.
It was a better closing than talking smack.
Yes. Don't worry. I'll smack him off camera for you guys. And listen, if you tuned into this podcast, thank you so much. Please do us a favor and subscribe to this podcast so that you do not miss any more great content. And please share this with someone else so that they can tune in and get great value as well. We're all about growing, and we're all about helping out the community. And that's what we're doing each and every day. It's been a pleasure having this conversation. And until next time, Mindset Rebooted.
Sometimes when things go wrong, you can't blame life. Cause when you shot your shot, what was your aim like? What were you targeting? Cause if it ain't right and you still go with it, then that is on you.